Hey guys, it's been a while since I've made a lecture for you. Let's see if I remember how to do this. Okay, we are moving on to Unit 9. We're beginning the collapse of the feudal system. But before we're not even really talking yet about the collapse of the feudal system. That's just the title of this unit. What we're really talking about right now is what was going on broadly in Europe right now between the 1100s and the 1300s. No, sorry, made a mistake. Between the year 1000 and 1300. These years are called the High Middle Ages. Why is that? Well, because the Middle Ages are approximately the year 400 through 1400. Some people say 500 through 1500, but we're using approximations. So it's a whole bunch of years here that we're talking about. And the low Middle Ages were the beginning. So we'd say maybe 400 to 700. And the middle would be about 700 to 1,000. And the high would be about 1,000 to 1,400. But specifically right now, we're talking about 1,000 to 1,300, which were part of the high Middle Ages. So I'm going to erase all this. We're talking about the high Middle Ages right now. High Middle Ages. So during the High Middle Ages, the number of people in Europe exploded. Now you have to remember that after the fall of the Western Roman Empire, society collapsed. Lots of people died. Cities were destroyed. People fled the cities, went out to the countryside. Society, I already said, society collapsed. Lots of people weren't doing so well. Well, now it's been a long time. When was it that the Western Roman Empire totally collapsed? 476. So now we're talking about over 500 years, and things are starting to finally come back. And society's starting to rebuild itself. People are starting to figure things out about farming. They're becoming better farmers. Some of the things that they're becoming better farming is they're learning about crop rotation, and they're learning how to use iron plows. Now, let me tell you what crop rotation is. Pretend this is a field. And here's your farmer. Let's say this is Farmer Bob. And Farmer Bob in the year 300, Farmer Bob took a bunch of seeds and he just threw them out in the field. He just threw them out. Or maybe Farmer Bob was a little smarter than that. Farmer Bob knew to plant in rows. He probably knew to plant in rows. But Farmer Bob planted, let's say, barley. And he planted barley in his field every year, every season, every year, year after year after year, he planted barley. But eventually, his barley didn't grow so well anymore. And he didn't really understand why, but his barley wasn't growing so well anymore. Well, one day, somebody figured out that if he rotated his crops, which means if he, hold on one second, let me erase here. If he grew barley here, oats here, wheat here, and left this part fallow, which means empty. And he rotated him, like he grew this here one season. And then the next season, he grew his barley here and his oats here and his wheat here. Or hold on. Yes. Okay. Barley, wheat, oats, fallow. And then the next season, he grew barley here, wheat here, oats here. Oh, I'm turned around. I've messed up. But if he turned it in a circle, so one year, if the next, I'm sorry, guys. Okay, so the next year, this one's fallow, and this one's wheat, and this one's oat, and this one's barley. And then the next year, this one's fallow, and this one's wheat, and this one's oats, and this one's barley. Do you see how I'm moving it around and around and around in a circle? It rotates like a clock. It's like magic. And the plants never get weaker and weaker. They stay strong year after year after year. Why is that? That's because the nutrients that these plants eat are different. The barley, the nutrients that the barley eats from the ground are different than what the oats eat. And what the oats eat is different than what the wheat eats. And the fallow, the empty land, gives this land here an entire season to replenish itself. And so this land has an entire season to replenish itself. This one is only using up what the wheat likes. This one is only using up what the oat likes. This one is only using up what the barley likes. And so we're keeping fairly healthy land. And Bob gets 3 great, strong, healthy crops year after year after year after year, instead of what he had been doing before, which was just growing, he had been only growing one thing year after year after year, and eventually his oats just wouldn't grow anymore. So they learned that. They learned crop rotation during the High Middle Ages. They also all the way from back in the Roman times, they had used plows. Hopefully you all know what a plow is, but we can look it up on the internet. Roman wooden plow. Images. Here's a plow that Romans would have used to, oh no, that's iron. Well, it would have been wooden. They would have used a wooden plow to dig up the dirt to plant their seeds. But in the high Middle Ages, they started using iron, and the iron would dig deeper into the dirt. So think about your Roman map, and I gotta get back to my map. I've lost my pen. Okay, so remember the map I've always drawn. Here's the Mediterranean Sea, and here's our Roman Empire. But then the Western Roman Empire collapsed, but people spread further out here. So in here, where the Roman Empire is, along the Mediterranean, the soil is softer and thinner, and like a soft wood can dig it up just enough to get a seed down in there. But as you go further and further away from the Mediterranean, you need to dig further down, and they needed something harder. So they used metal. And when they started using iron, they started being able to grow more crops. They also learned how to make harnesses for horses. Before they started using horses, they used oxen. Let me show you what an oxen is. Oxen. I don't want to look at oxen on Etsy. Here we are. Oxen. These are oxen. These guys are big and strong, but they're really, really, in English, we have a phrase called bull-headed. They don't really like to listen to you. They do what they want to do, and they're super strong, but they don't necessarily listen to you. So horses are easier to control. And so during the high Middle Ages, people learned how to make harnesses for horses to use plows. And horses are quicker and easier to control. So now they've got iron plows and horses, so they can plow more land, way more land, quicker, and so they can grow more food. And with more food, you're going to have more people. So lots more people all across Europe. Okay. And crop rotation, horses, iron plows. Those are three really important things. And remember the word fallow. Fallow means empty. It's just one of those important cultural studies words, fallow. You'll hear it again when you get to secondary school. You'll hear it again when you get to university. Just don't forget what this word fallow means. Also, during the high Middle Ages, there were these monks, these Catholic monks called Cistercian, oops, I forgot the R, Cistercian monks. And the Cistercian monks were really big on raising sheep, and they helped people learn how to raise sheep. And by raising sheep, and what they did with the sheep was they sheared them for their wool. So they helped people to learn how to raise sheep for shearing wool, and then they could make clothing and make blankets and do all kinds of things. If you're raising sheep to shear their wool, you can make money off that. More money means more people. All of this combined, once again, the learning how to harness horses, iron plows, crop rotation, sheep, all of that together made for the near doubling of European society during the High Middle Ages. So during 300 years, from the year 1000 to the year 1300 in Europe, the population went from 39 million to 74 million. That's huge. That's a really, really big jump in population in a short period of time. All right. And this farming made medieval society, the economy boomed. Boomed means went wild. The economy of the medieval times had been really, really low and depressed for a long time now. Ever since the collapse of the Western Roman Empire, the old Western Roman Empire had been doing really bad. And it was really, things were starting to come back now. It was pretty cool. So trade had never completely disappeared. It had almost disappeared, but not completely. But because of this thriving economic boom, it's starting to come back. And because it's starting to come back, and there was such a great surplus, this really cool thing happened. And people had all this like extra stuff for hundreds and hundreds of years now. No one had extra anything. People that were farmers just barely had enough crops to feed their own kids. But now they had enough to feed their own kids and sell to somebody else. If they had a sheep, they just had enough wool to make clothing for their own family. But now they might have enough wool to shear it and make blankets for other people. So they had all this stuff, and they could travel and sell it to other people. So trade is increasing. And as trade is increasing, all these coins, because money at the time in Western Europe was coins. I'm trying to show you my coins, but it's difficult with the camera. I've got all these coins, and when you're carrying bunches and bunches of coins, it can get really heavy. And some people had traveled and had seen that in other parts of the world, they did this thing called a bill. a bill. And a bill is a piece of paper that represents coins. Let me get a bill for you. Hold on one second. Okay, so one of these represents 4 of these. But I could have one of these that just has a different number here that could represent 100, 1,000, 1,000 of these. So it's just easier to carry these than it is to carry coins. And they made those. So now life is easier for these traders because they get to just carry bills. But who's going to issue the bills? Bankers. And how are the bankers going to make money? Well, you have to pay the banker a tiny little bit of money for the privilege of getting to use their bills. And so the bankers are getting rich off everyone wanting to use their bills. And the bankers that are getting rich are now building up cities. And so the cities are beginning to thrive again, especially in Italy. All across Italy, you've got cities thriving again because there's trade thriving again. And because of trade, there's banking. And because of banking, the bankers are getting rich, and the bankers getting rich is making cities. All right. Now, on to the cities. Cities, just like trade, cities had never completely disappeared. They had continued after the fall of the Western Roman Empire, but they had definitely been in decline, and they had been constantly going down for hundreds of years now. They were really, really, really going down, 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 down. People were fleeing away from the cities and going out to the countryside to be farmers because you just couldn't make it in the city. But in the cities, usually approximately weekly, there would be a market where everybody would come together to sell their stuff. And sometimes somebody would open up a store, like the shoe salesman would open up a shoe store, and the hat salesman would open up a hat store, and the flower person would open up a flower store, and, you know, whatever. And sorry, the in these, amongst these people, there would sometimes be a whole bunch of people that sold shoes. Maybe in one city, there would be, I don't know, let's say 12 shoe shops. Shoe, 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 shoe. Bear with me. I'm going to write it all out because it's worth it. Shoe, shoe, shoe. All right. So we're in one city and there are 12 shoe shops. Well, how do you as the customer know which shoe shop to go to? And or how do you as this shoe salesman know that this shoe shop isn't going to like sell shoes for less money and you're not going to go out of business? So what these shoe stores would often do is they would open up a thing called a guild. And a guild was kind of like a club. It was where all the people that owned the shops, in my example, it's the shoe stores, but it could also be the hats or the flowers or the barley or the oats. It doesn't matter, whoever it is. So it's this club of all the owners, and they would get together and they would all set a price. They would say, we're all going to sell our shoes for $5. Shoes are $5. And they would say, we're all going to have high quality shoes. If one of us starts to have low quality shoes, we're kicking you out of the guild. They would do things like everybody would donate a little bit of money to a big like an account. And if one person died, everybody else they would all give to that person's family. That's pretty cool. Or they would all donate and they would pay for each other's children to go to school. They were really cool, these guilds. They were groups that came together to help each other out. And there would be, I'm sorry, I keep coughing. There would be the shoe guild and the flower guild and the hat guild. There would be the theater guild and there would be the teachers guild. You know, whatever your career was, there would be that guild where everybody would get together and they would support each other. And so cities were they had been in this steep decline for hundreds and hundreds of years, ever since the decline of the Western Roman Empire. And now they're just beginning to go back up. And people now are beginning to come back into the city from the countryside. There had been this mass exodus from the city out to the countryside, but now the city is calling, and people from the farms, people from the villages, people from the countryside hear the city calling, and they're like flocking into the city. They have this desire to go into the city, and it's calling to them. So that's the end of our first lecture of this next unit. I'm so excited to talk to you about it. Okay, bye guys.